You were born in the year the Second World War ended. What was it like growing up at the end of such a war?
It was a time of rationing.
Rationing?
Rationing food wasn't so easily available. You have to ration butter and tea and coffee and things like that.
And when you say Empire Day, what was that?
A celebration of the empire. You know, that there was an empire. We were British. There was a vote. Remember, it was after the Holocaust?
Yeah.
During the war. Millions of Jews were killed. There was a big vote, all the United Nations, on whether to give the Jewish people a state of their own. So it was agreed that Israel would have a portion of the land.
Do you think the land or the state of Israel still holds that special place in God's heart? Some people draw a distinction between ancient Israel and this political Israel. You talk about perception. I have never known Iran to just let that go. Right now, is it all about perception, where we think Iran has just let that go? Or is Iran going to come back with something?
I'm just an ordinary man, but I have lived.
You mentioned you had a painful marriage breakup. So what happened?
Well, it's strange, Victor, when you reflect on things. If I hadn't have made the bad decision that I made then, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now as a Christian. So what happened, I met a girl.
How did you then come across the Bible?
This uncle who I told you about, who was in a Japanese prisoner of war, he'd come over and he would mention certain things. John 3:16, and thinking, God so loved the world that he had no hatred for the Japanese.
If you were to look at the 15-year-old boy who was just going into construction, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give this boy just as he's starting to live his life?
I think the key thing is
Welcome to another Soul episode. We just did a prayer. We're praying that this will bless somebody and God will guide our conversation today. And today's special guest is someone whose life bridges generations, continents, and convictions. He was born in 1945, which is, for those listening, the same year the World War II ended. He took a bold step leaving home for London, then to Saudi Arabia, following a painful marital breakup. Today's story is one of faith, commitment, and character, with tons and tons for anyone and everyone who is willing to listen, to learn from. Alfred, welcome.
Thank you, my friend.
It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah. You were born in the year the Second World War ended. What was it like growing up at the end of such a war?
Well, we were living in a house. My father was an engine driver, steam engine driver at the time, in a little place, a village at the time called Percy, Maine, which is near to North Shields. We lived in the cottages there that were built for the railway people who worked on the railway. Had little cottages, very basic. But eventually there was a new estate built near where we call the Coast Road, which is near a place called Formica, Billy Mill area. New houses. So where we were living was going to be demolished because they were very old cottages. So the family moved up to the new estate. And we lived there from 1950, I think it was. So I was growing up there. Eventually we went to a local school, and it was an interesting time. A young kid, you know, I had, I think it was 4 sisters at the time and a brother. And it was a time of rationing.
Rationing?
Rationing food wasn't so easily available. You have to ration butter and tea and coffee and things like that. And for us kids, the sweets were rationed.
Really?
What
was it like rationing butter and sweets?
It's strange. Well, the mother would go along and you'd have, I think, a little certificate, as far as I remember, and you have to put the coupon down to the shop, and you'd get your little ration. So that was in the 1950s, and then things changed and improved, obviously. And went to school in the area, as I say. Met a lot of young lads around the area playing football. There was a field a top field where we would all congregate and play football in the winter and cricket in the summer. Just lots of new families in the area and lots of young people and children. So it was a good time. It was okay. And eventually got some work, as I told you, when I became 15, left school at 15. No qualifications really, academically. The school I went to was a secondary modern school, which really just prepared you for work in the shipyard, because the shipyard from the time, many shipyards were building ships and repairing ships. So they needed a lot of workers there. So from that secondary modern school, a lot of the young boys would go and work in the shipyards. And then myself would be, a lot of people would go on the building sites. But there's also a lot of coal mines in the area. And many of the young boys leaving school would go work in the mines because you could earn a lot of money in the mines. You know? So that's basically what happened at the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about Great Britain and we know about the British Empire and how large I think it's the largest empire that has ever existed, the British Empire. And the end of World War II was what people say was the beginning of the decline and then the breakup of the British Empire because of the amount of resources that they had exhausted during that World War. Did you feel that change growing up where, because we still talk about the British Empire even today, like the Great Britain, when you hear the stories from your uncles, you hear the stories from your parents, from, those that were much older than you, and you see the reality, did you feel that decline, or was it just something that had to come over time?
It wasn't really something that was spoken about, to be honest, because if you think about it, we are a working class people. I went to a school which just taught you how to read and to write, a little bit of history. There was an Empire Day at school where once every year everyone would go in the schoolyard and there'd be some singing about the empire. Empire Day, they called it. But really, and the family and that were just living life. And, people who had been to the war, my father, an engine driver, didn't get involved in the war because he was doing important work here, moving munitions and troops throughout England. But the general world picture, I can't remember much about that. It wasn't really often talked about. Little bits, the TV was very new then, as you can imagine, in the 50s and early 60s. So people were just living their lives,
And when you say Empire Day,
Empire Day.
What was that? That's the first time I'm hearing
a celebration of the empire. That there was an empire, and we were British.
Yeah.
And there would be a recognition of it. It's almost like I don't know. Now you have the Battle of Britain Day or the end of the war day. It was just or the Queen's birthday, perhaps. Or the Queen or the King. Just some kind of yearly celebration, but an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
But you see, you and I being spiritual people, having a knowledge now as we've grown, and we've been reading the Bible, and we begin to understand things from a wider perspective. That perhaps, there was a number of empires which were powerful before the war, before the First World War and then the Second World War. But when you think about how Britain acted toward Israel, the British had made certain promises to Israel. Just before the end of the First World War, and then in 1920, they promised to assist and to bring about a state of Israel at that time. The Balfour Declaration, I think, by one of the British ministers, they'd made certain promises. But then they began to pull back from the promises they made. So then time went by, the 20s and the 30s, and then eventually the beginning of the Second World War. By then, Britain had, I'm not sure, but it looked as if they were trying to wash their hands of the promises they'd made to Israel. So people who are a lot wiser than I am have said that many of these empires who'd cause problem for the Jewish people begin to collapse. Spain was very, very powerful in persecuting the Jews. The Spanish had a great empire, and maybe the 15th century or something, and their empire just collapsed. So this British Empire, as you said, which covered large areas of the world, when the United Nations in 1947, which is after the war, there was a vote. Remember, it was after the Holocaust, during the war, when millions of Jews were killed. There was a big vote, all the United Nations, on whether to give the Jewish people a state of their own. So it was agreed that Israel would have a portion of the land which was then Palestine, and the Arabs would be given another portion of the land. And it was voted upon, and Britain abstained.
Mm.
So America voted for it, the USSR, and a lot of the nations, and it passed. The vote was passed that yes, there would be a mandate for a part of Palestine to be for the Jewish people, and a part for the Arabs, for the Palestinians. So as you know, Israel agreed to that. 1948, May the 14th, they declared themselves a nation on the area which had been given to them by the United Nations. Legitimate, legal, and the Arabs rejected it. So there's a spiritual battle going on even then. But because I think the way again, people who know about this and who think deeply, the collapse of British Empire, British influence in the world, could be attributed to the deceitfulness and the reneging of promises they'd made to Israel, who are God's people. So the empire, and then you have all the complications of things since. I mean, people can look into this, and I think it's quite well known now. I'm just reflecting on the way Russia collapsed at the time, the Soviet Union, because there was a lot of pogroms in history in the 1800s against the Jewish people. They treated the Jewish people badly, although they voted for the for the establishment of a state of Israel. Anyway, we don't know about that because they're trying to resurrect the Soviet Union.
So do you think the land or the state of Israel still holds that special place in God's heart?
Oh, absolutely.
Because some people draw a distinction between ancient Israel and this political Israel.
Yeah. No, I've been convinced in what I've read of the Bible particularly, and the miracles which have happened since, like the idea of the fig tree, budding again. Can a nation be born in a day? 1948. And the things which happened immediately after that. The next day they were attacked by most of the nations around them, try to annihilate them. And they came through. They didn't even have an army. And all the countries around them had armies and tanks and all the munitions of war. And Israel had nothing. And they survived. And then the other wars and the other wars and the other wars and what's just happening lately.
Yeah.
I think somebody said to me once that what they believe. This is what this person said. When I've looked at things and read the Bible and thinking about what's happening in Israel, it appears that God gives the advantage to his people. They still have to do something. We still have to do something, don't we? You know, in
Yeah,
life,
of course.
But it seems as if when we worship him wholeheartedly and acknowledge him, he gives us the advantage in certain things. In Israel, as you know, many of them are secular people who don't believe, and many of them just are still in Moses.
Yeah.
They haven't accepted Yeshua. But it does seem that he hasn't given up on them. There is a distinction between, he gave the land as an everlasting possession, and he outlined the borders. And it seems as if when you read prophecy, I don't know too much about prophecy, but those who do know about prophecy, that land is so important. It has to be there. Jerusalem has to be there for Jesus to come back.
Yeah.
So Israel has to exist. There will be terrible things coming upon Israel. We believe that they will come through this challenge now, but there will be peace again. But during that peace, certain things will happen. The coalition from the north will come, in Ezekiel, I think it is, and they'll come for loot. They'll come to ravage Israel, not so much to wipe them out like the river to the sea. They'll just come for advantage to take from Israel. Russia, Iran, and Turkey.
Do you not think that's what we're seeing now?
I think we're seeing the part of it. I think we're seeing that God has given them the advantage. But also the difficulty with the ones coming from the north, where God, because I think in that prophecy, it is God who intervenes directly then. I think he's involved now, giving them the advantage, giving them the breaks. Do you understand?
Yeah.
In the background, as it were, that providential hand. But I think in this other war that is prophesied, he will have to deliver them, because the forces coming against him will all try to overwhelm them, and they will be overwhelmed. But it seems as if, you see, the problem of that is that America is no longer in the picture then, whereas America is in the picture now. Do you understand what I mean?
I just watched a video. We can see the rise and decline of empires, like we've mentioned.
Yeah.
We talked about the rise and decline of Spanish Empire, the Mongolian Empire, the British Empire, the Roman Empire. We've seen the past.
Yeah.
We have been in the last few years basically living in the time where USA is known as the powerhouse. And the video said that we're starting to see the decline of that. So we could say it's a decline of a very influential empire.
America, you mean?
America. So is this the prophecy unfolding right now, where we're seeing the decline of America? You just said that America will not be in the picture at the time.
Yeah, but the difference is that was definitely appropriate if the Democrats had won this election. They didn't win. America were because it's perception, isn't it? Particularly because I've worked in the Middle East, and I know a little bit about the Arab psyche, and it's what you appear to be is very important. So America appeared to be weak. Afghanistan, terrible thing that they let happen there, remember? And they had no real influence. They were imploding within. The society was corrupt, remember? They were dismissing Christians. The freedom of speech was a big issue. They were promoting all kind of ungodly things, the mutilation of the children, the gender issue, the woke There's DEI. The whole thing was weak, corrupt, like the Roman Empire, like corrupting from within. So yes, if they had continued that way, you could say it. So, but it's changed. Somebody his enemies tried to kill him, became the leader. And he's even created a place in the White House now, a room where Christians are established there and they pray there. Many of his cabinet are Christians. And he has removed a lot of this negative things from America. So he's creating again the superpower that was.
You think so?
I think so, and I think it's seen now. He stopped a number of wars just through his presence and the way he does things. Rwanda and Congo, 30 years they were killing each other, and he put an end to it. India and Pakistan, they've got both nuclear powers. That could have been a devastating problem.
Yeah,
he moved in, stopped it. Armenia and Kurdistan, I think, again, terrible things that have been going on and on and on. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Is that what we're saying? But it's mainly, you've mentioned about the power and the perception. America is perceived again to be very, very strong. Look what happened in Iran. Nobody could have done that. Nobody could have sent planes 36 hours in the air, stealth planes. They didn't even know, the Iranians didn't even know they were there. Took out the atomic problem. You see, the Arabs and the other people in the world, they see that. They see that there's a resurrection now of this power.
You talk about perception. I have never known Iran to just let that go. Right now, is it all about perception, where we think Iran has just let that go? Or is Iran going to come back with something? That's what we do not know.
Possibly. I met at the market on Saturday. 2 weeks ago, there was a man and a woman from Iran are working here now in some research place in Newcastle at one of the universities. And they was so hoping that at that time, both Israel, because they were in the 12-day bombing, that they would go into Iran and even somehow America and remove the Ayatollahs for them. He said they've got contacts in Iran, and they were saying many of the people, they were grateful to what had happened. The bombing of America and Israel. But they were disappointed when they didn't take out the... but we know that doesn't work. It's got to be from within. Who knows? But again, for that prophecy, if the Ayatollahs were taken out, the Persian people, the Iranians, would make a treaty with Israel again, because they were until 1978, I think, they were great friends with Israel. And then the Ayatollahs came in and the ideology. So for this prophecy, Iran still has to be there. So it seems as if the Ayatollahs have to be there. And whether they'll come back, people who know about these things say they're quite weak at the moment. It's a lot of bluster. They say things. It's like in the schoolyard,
Yeah.
you coming up to me, and saying, all my mates are going to do this and do the other, when you've only got one little skinny little friend. it's just an amazing time to be alive, you know.
Yeah, fantastic. But let's bring it home. What does that mean for Great Britain? Because we talk about the idea for of wokeness and all of these things that seem so weak and weak and weak, and someone coming to change that. Do you think that's what we're seeing in England?
I think what we're seeing in England is that we are blessed here because we're in the north. Maybe as far as Middlesbrough, maybe it's Middlesbrough, Darlington, Sunderland. Then you're getting on to Gateshead, you're going to Newcastle, Tynemouth, Seaton Delaval, Anisford, and then right up to Northumberland, and to where my daughter is. Because the Muslim people in the north here, they're mainly business people. They're just making a living. They've been here a lot of years, making good business, making good lives, you know. That, but further south, it's not like that. So it seems as if to us, who are keeping our eyes open, we've got a socialist government who seem to be incompetent. You know, there doesn't seem to be any conviction. You know, they've got an ideology. I don't know what it is, but I don't think they love Britain. I don't think they love the people. They've got their agenda. I don't know exactly what it is. It's almost verging on communism. But and you know, they decide to do something, and then there's a rejection a little bit, and they change their mind. There's no conviction. But the biggest problem is immigration, and mainly not from yourself, not from people who come here to work and they have a family and prosper and bless us. You know, look at the Restoration Chapel. You know, I would want to take everyone in that area around Norham High, and I would want them to come and go into that atmosphere and see how blessed we are by your presence. But so, you know, you're working people, and you love, you want to be absorbed in the land.
So I think it's about culture.
It's more than that. It's, you see, you've got jihad. You know what jihad means. So part of the jihad it's not always the sword, which the Muslims went into Palestine at the time, and then along the African coast into Spain. It was a sword.
Yeah.
You know. But now it's coming into a land and multiplying yourself, you know, and then using the system to get control. Seemingly peaceful, but when you get control, the true person comes out, you know, which you want to subjugate, you know. So that's the biggest problem, I think, is the amount of people who've come with a different, incompatible worldview to ours, basically. You've got the same worldview of us. You want to be able to speak, you want to have a family, you want to live peacefully, you want to work hard, and you want to, you know, just integrate, just be a part of this society. But these people seemingly they don't want that, you know. They want to take over.
Yeah, what do you think is different between somebody that has lived long years, you're either 80 right now, going to be 80 this year, to the young people that are maybe 20s? Because the reasonings are quite different, except for those that has been exposed to maybe people of that age. I'll give you an example. You will see a lot of these things, Free Palestine. You'll see a lot of comments on YouTube and everywhere that would go against what you're saying. You know, some people might even tag that as saying racism, or even tag it as saying you're not tolerant, you're this, you're that. But, you know, they haven't seen what you have seen. They haven't experienced Britain in 1945 going through the rebuild after the World War. They haven't seen any of that. They haven't seen what Britain could become. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we've always been a nation who welcome people who are in need, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We've always been generous, like America, you know, the Statue of Liberty. People pouring into that land, you know, with nothing, basically, for a better life. As far as again, you see, we've got to be careful here. I'm just an ordinary man, you know, without any kind of education, really, in the conventional sense. But I have lived. And since being a Christian, you know, we read the Bible and we do get a little bit of insight. But I think it's just the British character seems to be very tolerant, but also, you know, with a degree of prejudice, you know, which is natural in some ways. You know, when something is unknown, you know, something different. There was many people came to help, particularly the big cities, you know, when we needed work people. I think the difference really is the amount. I don't know how we can have an analogy here, but if you have something that seems to be working quite well, people getting on with each other, there's a lot of neighborliness, you know, everybody. And, you know, if your child is out on the street or something, somebody would keep an eye on things. And if you went away on holiday, they would watch your house, and which is good. But then you maybe have a lot of people who are coming from a different way of doing things, different culture, as you said. And then you could be absorbed. You know, you could probably tell me, you see the situation. When in Rome, you do as the Romans do, you know. So you just eventually you want to be accepted. You're a bit different, but you're a kind person. You're generous. You want the best. You're not a thief. You know. You just want the best for everybody, and you'll eventually just become part. But when you get an overload of difference, the elderly people get a bit unnerved, you know, because they're not sure what's going on here. You know? And then you get the ideology coming in, whereby you might have a situation where the nationals are not being treated the same way as the people who are overloading. There seems to be a discrimination against the nationals, which even between friends, you know, sitting at a dinner table, if somebody's getting all the food, you know, you get a bit resentful for that. You know, what's the matter with me? You know. So yeah, I think that's the issue. It's and regarding the young people who would not perhaps agree what I've just said about Israel and the problem that they are faced with against people who hate them. I think it goes back to your willingness to listen and to look at both sides, because the facts and the truth, like the Bible has stood the test of time, right? Because it's true. It's truth. It's the word of truth. It's the word of God. It's Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So I believe there's a spirit at the moment. We have it at the market. We have a little Israeli flag on the table, on the Bible table. We've had young, lovely, tender-hearted, many young women coming and pouring out resentment against Israel. But they will not listen to another way. They've heard something, and it seems it seems to fit in what they believe. They are good people themselves, and other people are being treated badly, and it's a shame and it's unfair. And the compassion that they feel is being manipulated, by deceitful forces, I believe. So they're not willing to listen, basically. I think if we could sit everyone down and go factually through the history, dates, 1970, 1920, boom, right the way through, even before that, and then present the case. I think a lot of these young people may change their attitude. Maybe they won't, because they've just become so, it's like an indoctrination. But again, you and I being spiritual people, you see, I believe anti-Semitism is a spirit that gets into a nation or a person. So I think that's what it was. And you get that spirit of delusion then, you cannot see. Or first of all, you're not willing to see, because if you think there's such a case for the underdog, the Palestinians. So you've taken that on first. You're compassionate toward what you see, which is a distortion of the truth, as you know, in the media. And then eventually that you get like a spirit of delusion. You cannot see the truth, So the difference between the young people maybe and people from my age group, I don't think it's that great. If the young people were born here, if they love their country, if they have hopes and dreams to do well, if they love sport, and they love the idea of the football and whatever it is, and the local football teams, and I don't think it's so much a difference. But again, you see, when I was growing up, I didn't have any foundational knowledge of the Bible. So my worldview was just, when I was young, a young person, were very influenced by America, by the culture of America. Because we listened in the 50s, if you think about it, the music at that time.
Yeah.
And all the great singers and the great groups. But also, the TV began to be a big thing in the UK, late 50s, early 60s. We're getting American TV programs coming over with all that involved. So the culture of America was very, very influential during the late 50s, early 60s, something maybe right, and even in Hollywood, So again, young people then influenced by America. In my group of people, not academic, were just working on the building site during the day, playing football at the weekend, doing the same thing, reading the sports papers, listening to the music, there's a lot of dances at the time. That's how you met your girlfriend and boyfriend. You'd go to a local hall, once or twice a week, and then you'd dance to the music, to the rock and roll music, and that's how you'd meet your future wife. So that was different. There was very little amount of media, personal media. Being in your car.
Yeah.
We've just seen that, you're connected to everybody in the whole world, aren't you?
Yeah.
So there's none of that. So that's completely different. But even though we and my friends, my mates, we didn't have like a biblical worldview foundation, there was the foundation of our families. We knew what our families stood for. They knew that they wanted us to try to be honest, try to live a reasonable life, try to get a good job, and then, a boy to meet a girl and a girl to meet a boy, and just that thing, and then have your own place and then be independent. So there was a foundation of, and again, we've been belonging to a nation which was free.
Yeah.
I could, as I told you, I could go anywhere. I was working here in the northeast, and at the drop of a hat, I could get on a train and go and work in London. Freedom of movement, up to a degree, freedom of what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
So the difference now, I'm not really sure what the young people are, but if they're British and they love their country, they'll want the same as what young people of my era wanted.
Yeah.
They'll want to get to do some good work. I think even some of the young people I've met are more thoughtful about what they want to do. Want to be a paramedic. And whereas we would just want to be a painter or a joiner. So,
but that could just be because of what was needed at the time. Britain was still rebuilding.
Well,
right?
was at the time. There's plenty of it. That was the key. Yeah. But what I mean is, you see, I do think that the young people are a lot more thoughtful, as far as I can see. Not everyone, because there's a demarcation. There's some who just don't know nothing.
Yeah.
In the middle and then the others who are really thoughtful because they've gained some knowledge.
Yeah. You mentioned you had a painful marriage breakup.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that relationship. And this was before you moved to Saudi Arabia.
Well, I went to Saudi Arabia to correct what had happened.
Okay.
Beforehand, yeah.
So what happened?
Well, I was, it's strange, Victor, when you reflect on things. If I hadn't have made the bad decision that I made then, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now.
Really?
As a Christian, yeah. So what happened, I met a girl at a dance, as we said. Went out with her for a while, and we began to stay together. She had a bed sit in Newcastle. I visited her, so we were sleeping together. Eventually, she became pregnant, and we were just really getting to know each other. And it was a very high point in my life at the time. I was playing football to quite a good standard in the area. I was captain of the team. I had a goal, which I hadn't had before. I was about 23-year-old. I'd just gone from 15 to 23, doing various kind of things on a building site. But now I had a goal. I wanted to get on what we would call get off the tools. I wanted an office job, a bit more security, wearing a tie. And a suit and things like that, to become like a supervisor or an inspector. But I knew how to do that. I knew what qualifications I needed, and there was like a route before me. So everything was well. I'd moved out of the family house. I had a little flat, a bed sitting on a flat in Tynemouth, over the bay. Where the castle is?
Yeah.
I was living in a house there. You'd come out the front door and you'd go for a swim.
Yeah, you said a bed sit, not a flat.
A bed sit, yeah. It was
What's
just
the difference?
it's just like a room with a bed, maybe a sofa, maybe a table, and a little place to make your food, like a sink. And
what we would call a studio room.
a studio, yeah, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, I had that. So everything was fine. Flying, I had the first girlfriend that I'd really had in my life, up until then. And everything was well, and I was just flying. So anyway, it turned out that the girl said that she'd missed she was pregnant, and that she was terrified of what her dad would say. Her dad was very severe, seemingly. So she didn't want to tell him. And she was really worried about the whole thing. So without thinking about it, and being quite like, I'll do the right thing. Because always if you got a girl pregnant, then you're almost indebted to marry her. Do you know what I mean? That was the ideal thing to do. That was the way a proper person did it, Even if that happened and you did approach the parents, they would say, well, okay, it's happened now, but now you're going to get married. So that was very much on my mind. So instead of going to the counselors, which would have been my sisters and my family, and telling them what was happening, we deceitfully tried to mask the whole thing. So because I would go back and forward to London, I had a lot of confidence to do certain things. So I said to the girl, this is what we'll do. You're pregnant now. I think it was a month that she'd, missed a period or something or whatever, a couple of months. So I said, well, I'll go to London. I'll get some money, earn some money, and I'll organise a place for us to stay down there. I'll come back. It's going to be about 6 weeks. I'll come back. We'll get married in a church and have a reception. And then we'll after the reception, we'll go straight down to London to what I've created. And nobody will know about, your dad will not know about you being pregnant.
Beforehand.
So that's what we did. Went down to London, got a little place, got some money, come back, seen a vicar in St. Peter's, which is a little church in North Sea, and had the reception and just went away. But the problem was, I had to tell all my mates, because I was a captain of this team, and there was a big game coming off, a semi-final or something, all this. And other reasons, there was a deep resentment. I didn't realize it, but there was a deep resentment within me that I was giving up all of this for you, and that lingered during the first part of the marriage, and it continued, so that I treat her particularly badly, not cruel in a sense, but just, because I didn't feel any love, you see. It was just really an infatuation, if you think about it. First proper girlfriend, you've been sleeping together, getting to know each other, and then suddenly, bang, you've got a child and you've got a wife to look after. I wasn't up to it. I didn't have the character, really. I had the ideal of what to do, but I didn't have the character to back it up. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just tottered on and tottered on and tottered on. There was times when I kind of came to my senses a little bit. We tried to make a go of things. Came back to the north eventually with the little girl and that, my daughter. But eventually, because of my attitude, it didn't work.
She left.
Yeah, she left. She obviously was looking for love and would go somewhere else to find love and whatever. So the whole thing just unraveled. And then eventually we got divorced. But
after how many years did you get?
It was 8 years.
After 8 years.
Yeah. We tried, of stop and start. And but mainly through it all, it was selfishness of a 23-year-old, 24, 25, 20, a young person who hadn't really grown up in a sense. I was still living in the past, I think, with my friends, and we do what we want and all that kind of stuff, And so really it was just selfishness that caused the problem. But again, reflecting on it, if I had had the character to make it work, and maybe had more children or whatever, and if we hadn't have been deceitful at the beginning, I would have still been with my mates. I would have still had my goal to go to college. Yeah. She could have even stayed in that little studio place with me, staying in the north. Taught her father. It would have worked. I'm sure it would have worked then, because we would have got to know each other a bit better. And then the little girl would have came along.
Was it a bit isolating moving to London with
Terrible,
her?
yeah. Not for me, because by then I'd gained quite a lot of confidence, being moving around a lot, And but for her, you see, just to be on our own, no grandmother to talk to. Then when the baby came down there, no friends to talk with, and a husband who was just treating her as if she was, just
Yeah.
somebody who had to get on with things and do. So it was terrible, really. But again, you see, it's difficult. We don't want to look back, because we look back and take the wisdom from the years, but the sense of failure could almost paralyze you. You know what I mean? Because later, you see, when I began to see, when the Lord opened my eyes, when I began to read the Bible, and the Holy Spirit was beginning to show me things in His kindness, just step by step by step, little bits at a time. It can be overwhelming, that sense of guilt, of the way you were and what you did and what you should have done, what you couldn't. You could almost end up in a state of paralysis, where you just say, that was so bad I can't even look myself in the mirror,
How did you then come across the Bible? Like, what made you? Because you said it was, if that didn't happen, you probably wouldn't be who you are today.
Yeah, today, yeah.
So what happened?
Well, what happened really was, I think the main thing, this uncle who I told you about, who was in a Japanese prisoner of war camp, he would come over to the UK from time to time, right? And he would visit my family, my mother, my dad, and all that. And people would remember him how he was. He was a wild boy, a wild man, 19-year-old, living on the North Shields around the fish quay and on the docks. He would just, doing all kind of things. And then he went to sea, as I told you, and then the ship got sunk. He ended up in a prisoner of war camp, and he became a Christian, living in Australia. So in the early days, and then maybe in the early 60s, he would come back and forward. He'd come over, and he would mention certain things to me. And my mother, would be sitting there listening to him. And he'd be talking about John 3:16 and things like God so loved the world, and that he had no hatred for the Japanese.
Even though they were the one that held him captive.
Yeah, the Japanese, yeah. But no, cruel, very cruel. And then, but he had no hatred against them, and he's explaining to us it was because of his belief now. He's asked for mercy, so that he said he felt free of all that. So this was on my mind, I wasn't going to act upon it, but it was there. This man called Alfie, who I was named after, was a Christian, believed in the Bible, So anyway, what happened after the breakup of the marriage? We'd come back north. Then I was in debt, I had to get myself out of debt, because I left the house we were in. I left it with the ex-wife and my daughter, in North Shields. So I was living in studios, terrible situation. So eventually I ended up going to Saudi Arabia. But before I had gone, I lived in a again, like a rented room in Whitley Bay, in this period of like transition, I was living in this rented room. There's two Scotch people, two old man and an old woman, and they gave me a little bedroom, and we would sit down with a breakfast in the morning, and I would leave and then go to work. I was working for the city council at the time. I got off the tools. I became somebody in a suit.
Look at you.
Yeah, look at me, working as a building inspector. So I would leave the house in the morning. But anyway, before then we eventually got a contract in Saudi Arabia. But this old couple had said, "It's been nice having you here with us. We would like you to take this." So they gave me a little Bible, a black, Bible was always black, wasn't it? A beautiful little black covered Bible. "Would like you to have this. Would you take it?" I said, "Oh, I'll take it." So anyway, took it away. But I took it to Saudi Arabia with me. And working in the desert, and miles away from everywhere in a pickup truck. I was working as a supervisor. But I would begin to memorize in the beginning, God created the heavens, and it was a King James Bible. So from time to time I would read, and I was struck by the language. And the evening and the morning were the second day. I loved that.
Yeah.
So the beauty of the Elizabethan language was beautiful. So I was memorizing some of that. Wasn't really making me, consider anything. I didn't feel any kind of conviction about anything at that time. But it was just, there was the Bible in there. I was beginning to give it access to my heart, So eventually the contract finished. I went twice actually. But the second time I came back from Saudi Arabia, I'd eventually got a little flat in Tynemouth. I'd had some money now because I was working and getting money from Saudi Arabia. So I bought a little flat. Bare boards. I only had one sofa and a seat like yours there, but with wing backs in this lounge of this flat. Bare floorboards and a fire. So, and you could burn smokeless fuel, So it was winter time when I moved into this flat. I'd come back from Saudi Arabia, the dust would begin to settle, and I'm just reflecting on things, So we eventually, after a few ups and downs, we went to Newcastle to watch the match. It was a bank holiday. I had a long period off, months with just resting because I'd been through a lot. So I didn't get a job straight away. So anyway, I went up to Newcastle to watch Newcastle St James's. So after the match, I come down a street called Granger Street. It's a street that leads to the central station in Newcastle. So I come down, and there was a little seat next to a very old church on the bottom of the corner. So I'm sitting in the seat, bank holiday Monday, very quiet in the area really, and there was a lot of litter on the ground, a lot of paper blowing, So I'm sitting there, and this magazine had blown up, and it was near to my foot, so I picked it up. It was a magazine called The Plain Truth. It had been given out years and for years on the streets. You could pick this magazine. I think it was the WWII Church of God, some group in America who were promoting this. And I picked it up, and I was aware of this magazine because I'd seen it in London, So I began to flick through the pages, and I stopped at one article, and in the part of what I was reading, it said, you have a choice, You can put God to the test. And I think it mentioned one of the Psalms where it basically said, see how good the Lord is, I think, Taste and see how the Lord is good.
That the Lord is good.
It was based upon that scripture. So that stuck in my mind, So I took the magazine away, got on the bus or the metro, I think, back down to the flat. And over the next couple of days, that was on my mind. I still wasn't working, so I had time on my hands. So what I decided to do was just that. I had time to reflect on what had happened. I began to realize that I was like on a bit of a crossroad. Which way was I going to go now? Was I going to go the way I had been, following my own desires, my own ambitions and whatever? Or was it another way, I've been reading some self-help books at the time, and it didn't seem to be making too much sense, So then we've got this taste and see that the Lord is good. See how good he is. Remembering Uncle Alfie, things come back into your mind, how he had turned his life around after a horrible experience in the Japanese camps, So what I did what I would what I would do if I was studying when I wanted to to pass these exams, I would take it seriously. I would get up in the morning, have maybe a table, a book, and maybe a dictionary, a pen, and I would be reading what I needed to read, to study, So I decided to do that same with the Bible. So from this particular morning I got up, there was 2 bedrooms. There was a small bedroom where my daughter used to stay, actually, when she came to the flat. So I had the Bible, I had the dictionary, I had a pen and stuff like that, And I began to read the Bible. I read and somehow over the years, whether it was maybe from that magazine, there was like an idea what to do. You should maybe read a psalm, maybe read a proverb, read a gospel, and just some kind of bit of system. So it seems good to read the Psalms. So I began at Psalm number 1, Psalm number 2, Psalm number 3. This is over a period of days. And then I think it was to Psalm number 4. And during the psalm, it talks about how long, O men, will you turn my glory into shame? How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? Now, what had happened when I'd moved into the flat and I had a bit of money, I bought a jukebox. Do you know what a jukebox is?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. It's a big machine.
Yeah.
And it's full of records. And you've got all these, like on a computer, you've got the buttons that you press, A, B, C, and numbers.
And they will play that.
Yeah, and they were designed for restaurants and places like that, where people, America.
Yeah, America.
It's American influence. Yeah. So I bought one of them because what I hadn't realized, what I was trying to do, so all that emotional drama had ended. I'd eventually got myself out of debt and out of trouble again. I had my own little place in the place that I loved, which was Time Out. I even contacted my old manager of the team I was like a captain of before all things went awry, like 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And to start playing for them again. See, because I kept myself fit when I was working away.
How old were you at this point?
So be 23, 25, maybe 35 or something like
35,
that. Yeah,
okay.
so it was about 10 years after when I, originally. So what I hadn't realized, what I was trying to do was to recreate 1968 or 69, when everything went crazy, when we got married. We got married in 1970. But before that was the golden era, you know what I mean? So I was trying to recreate that stupidly. So I bought the jukebox, bought all the old songs that we loved, we would dance to. And I'm playing for the old team. And great, So I come. How long, O men, will you love delusions? And there was a dictionary. What delusion means? It says you're living like an unreal situation. It's delusionary. It doesn't exist. I'm living in a life that doesn't exist because I'm living in a life that happened so many years ago. How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? I hadn't thought of it at that time, but when we were growing up, these singers in groups, they were like gods to us, because we loved them. We loved the way they sang, we loved the way the whole thing about them, because it was related to young girls and dancing and all that, and you're young yourself. So these were like false gods. I had been captivated. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Not realizing it. And then there I was, foolishly trying to recreate, to go back into that, How long will you love delusions and seek false gods? How long will you turn my glory into shame? And it really hit me like a bolt. This is what you're doing. What you're going to do about it. So there was a period of reflecting. and then reading further in the Gospels, and then in the Proverbs. And, God was beginning to work his marvelous work upon me, so that I came to the point of accepting what had happened, that it was my fault, that I was weak, without character, inconsistent, like the man in the wisdom where he's double-minded, he's unstable in all his ways. You can't expect anything, That's exactly what I was, And it began to accept that. Various things were happening. I met various people who were able to deal with that, Eventually got baptized, at this particular place because I was convicted and I acknowledged, and surrendered my life to the Lord, And the first thing that went was a jukebox.
You threw it away.
So I needed a new kitchen, so that I just sold that. I just went. And when I knew I was free, there was one particular record that I was holding back onto because it was like a special record, and I had it tucked away in this little cupboard in the flat. And this night, somebody came along. This is after I accepted what the Lord had said. The jukebox had gone, but I was holding back on something, So there was a knock on the door, and the main house, there was different flats, but there was a main door. And anyway, there was a link to my place, so there was a ring on the bell. So I opened the door, and this young fella was there. And he says, I hear you know a little bit about jukeboxes and stuff like that, because I looked into the situation. So he says, I said, yeah, he says, I said, but I haven't got it anymore. He says, well, I've been thinking about this and thinking about that. So anyway, so I felt I should invite him in. So he came in and he was telling us about what he'd been doing. And I could see almost, not exactly myself, but I could see somebody captivated up to a point, which I eventually just collaborated with. Forgive me, Lord. But then he talked about some records, So he says, you know what? He says, I've been trying to get this record for ages. I've been to go to all the fairs, and I haven't been able to find it. I said, what's the record? And he taught me.
The same record that you had.
So I could sense, sometimes you do get a feeling, don't you? This is the point. What you're going to do here. So I said, hold on a minute, I went to the little cupboard, into the little box where I had it, and I just opened the box, got the record. It was in a white cardboard sleeve, There you are. I gave him the record. Again, it was like collaborating with his captivation, but Lord, you can deal with that. But I was free then, you see. Completely free.
Why would you say, forgive me, Lord?
Forgive me, Lord. Yeah, you see, I wasn't confident enough in the time to tell him what had happened to me. I could have said, look, I'm a bit like, I was like you, you're seeking this record. Why do you want this record? It was from 1959 or 60 or something. You're living in the past. Why, you're being captivated by something. Why don't you just forget all that, get rid of your jukebox and start, whatever words I could have found. But I didn't say that. I gave him what he wanted, which was, in a sense, it was collaborating with his enslavement, you see.
Do you think we have a responsibility to other people?
Absolutely.
In that case?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. If you're wise enough, yeah. And if you're close to the Lord, he'll show you. I mean, now, that's what I would have done. I wouldn't have given that now. I would have explained to him in a way that I hope I could have convinced him that he should really think about what he's doing.
Do you think we can separate that from people's careers? An example, if we have responsibility to other people in such sense. Could I work as a bartender where I'm selling and handing over drinks to people to get drunk?
Yeah. I think if you had a family, again, I think the Lord is so wise, and I think He gives us little chips of little, off the main big block of wisdom. I think if you've got a family and you're supporting a family, and they need, you need you to get an income, and that's the only job you could get, I think you become a bartender. If that is the only job you get. But if there's alternatives, you take the alternatives.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
Let me ask about this. Some things that you said, and I want to just give your 2 cents on it.
Yeah.
You said that character is critical. What does that mean to you?
Well, character, you see, is what makes the man, isn't it, or the woman? What standards you have, and the way you view things. So when I had made that decision to marry that young woman because I'd made her pregnant, it was the right thing to do. But I didn't have the character, I didn't have the strength within to carry out what I had before God decided to do. To take care of this woman and good and health and whatever. It's what is within the person, isn't it? You know what character means. It's his characteristics, his essential nature. Has it developed enough to withstand like temptations of knowing that's a wrong thing to do, and being able to reject that way and go the right way. It's what makes a man, I think
do you think it's something that we're lacking today? A lot of people without character. You, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that this man came into power in the United States and he did things that other people would not do.
Yeah, because he had a conviction. I think conviction and character can be very much similar, like an inward belief, an inward view, of how things should be. And I think that's what happened to him. There's no reason why he should have done that. He went through an emotional and a mental hell because these people who were in government at the time, and very powerful people, were trying to destroy him. But he put up with it. He kept going and going. Somebody tried to kill him. We believe an angel turned his head and it hit his ear. So he had a conviction, a deep conviction. He's just a man with many failings. But within his heart, he believed that he was born in a nation who had a great history and was being corrupted and weakened. And he felt that he could, with a proper team around him, he could begin to correct what was happening, because he felt his nation was in a free fall, and I believe it was. So he had conviction. He believed, and the difference, you see, you'll see it with this present government that we have. If a person has conviction, and then they're not rash or just doing everything because it seems to be the right thing. They've believed in something, they've looked into it, and it's become solid. It's like a foundation, and they believe that if they have the opportunity to do that, they will do it, because it's been thought through. They believe it is right. So if they get complaints or resistance, that's not going to stop them. And you'll see it now. Even in the short time that he's been in, he's done certain things. And the media over there, which is essentially left-wing media, they've been criticizing him on all fronts. But because he has character linked, conviction linked to character, and people around him who have the same conviction and same belief, he hasn't wavered. Whereas people who are like me, unstable in all your ways, double-minded. I was here, there, no character, no conviction, no inward strength, no ability to withstand things, So it's crucial,
Yeah.
And it can happen very young. I've met some very young people,
Who have developed
who
character
have
and
character.
conviction.
Yeah. They've got it, They've just got it. They've maybe whatever has happened to them, maybe setbacks or whatever, but they've got that sense within that they can handle things and do what is right.
You also said that selfishness leads to emptiness.
Yeah, well, what's what happened to me, wasn't it? That period of my life when I treated that person badly because I was so resentful of her and the situation that it had deprived me of a golden era that I was in. I went from everything that was working well to everything that was struggle, and so there was a deep resentment there, and but it was essentially selfishness. And when you're selfish, you become just yourself, don't you? you don't derive any good from the things that are there around you from other people, because you've got your own agenda, your own attitude, and it's so deceitful that you don't realize that you're doing it.
Self-absorbed.
Self-absorbed, self-interest, my glory, and I noticed that was the first thing that happened, a big thing, when I got baptized, because the baptism was a great turning point. I believed that going under the water and coming up, the one in reflection, one thing that it was evident and provable was I began to look out. I noticed situations, people maybe who had a problem, were in need, and then obviously, I realized who I had been, looking in and wanting the glory to be for me. Whereas now I wanted somebody else to succeed. I met a lot of young kids in Newcastle when I lived there, and it was a delight to get them to play tennis well, or to play football and do it well, and I would be quite willing just to let them receive all the glory, or however, whatever it was. People are friends, and it was quite a big change, and that's what happened when I knew that new life had come into me, when I was wanting the benefit of others rather than myself.
Final thought. If you were to look at the 15-year-old boy who, or 16-year-old boy who was just going into construction, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give this boy just as he's starting to live his life?
Yeah, I think the key thing is to make sure that you're interested in what you're doing, that you're not going into it just because someone thought it would be a good thing for you, and just to make sure that you would be able to commit to that and to want to get better at it. Do you know what I mean? To be happy in it, basically, because that's the key thing. And also when you're 15, it may seem it's a big deal, you've got to decide and do this, but you've got a few options, particularly now, I think. In my era, you had apprenticeship, and it was normally 6 years, from 15 to 21, and you were an apprentice for all those years, getting low wages. Then at 21, you became a tradesman. But all through those years, you were working often with other tradesmen. Do you understand what I mean? And they were teaching. You were learning from them. You're going to college. So the main thing would be, because that's going to be a big lot of your life, isn't it? Is to try as much as you can to find out what you as a young person like to do. Do you like working outside? Do you really like working with your hands? Do you like working with wood? Or do you like working with metal? So
outside of
so it's really just trying to find out what you would enjoy doing, and then if the opportunity arises, try and take that.
But outside of career, as a life lesson to a younger you, what would be the advice you would give to yourself?
This is classic out of the Bible. Surround yourself with decent people, solid people. Fortunately, I had that because of sport. I had many faults about the character and all that, but I had some good mates. And the reason was they were all involved in sport. So we would restrict ourselves we would restrain from doing certain things because of the game on the Saturday. Do you understand what I mean? And then with your friends, if you were a mess on the Saturday, you'd let somebody down because you're in a team. That's all I could say. It seems to be very simplistic, but people who were involved in what would appear to be a good thing, which is sport, were really my mates. We then went out together in the night and the weekends. So I was in that kind of little group. There was nobody outrageously evil. There wasn't thieving going on. There was drugs weren't really available then very much, but smoking and drinking was. But mainly it was just surrounding yourself with people who you could barely trust. If I had fallen down, I know out of all the friends that I had at that time, they would come to help us, and I would have done the same for them.
Likewise. Well,
so it's just, what does it say? A companion of fools suffers harm. I think that's the key thing, isn't it? We did have the occasional one, but you could tell he was a fool. When you're actually very protective of him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Who just drank too much, And he used to get himself in a he's like a slob, the American words. But I mean, we loved him, we would try to be friendly to him. But he wasn't really part of the inner team of friends, because of the sport,
Yeah.
So God bless him.
Well, a word is enough for the wise. Thank you very much, Alfred, for coming.
No problem.